Hello and welcome to Keeping It Young podcast, conversations about marriage, family, and ministry life. I'm Dave.
And I'm Bethlie.
And we are the Youngs.
We're so glad to be back. We have taken a little break, longer than we ever have before.
Yeah, a little sabbatical after all these 5 years of recording. We took 3 weeks off here. And I think many of you probably are kind of aware. We had, I was encouraged by those who reached out and said, can't wait to have you back. And so thank you for all that and for praying for us. Of course, I transitioned from evangelism into a church pastorate back in January, and it has been kind of a huge transition moving from Florida, living in the RV while we were finding a house here in Missouri, and then we found a house, and then after we found the house, we had the tornado season begin, and the first tornado of the tornado season in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, damaged the house we were going to buy.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, we were kind of back at ground zero as far as waiting. Do we move out of the RV? Do we rent something? And so the Lord has enabled us to be able to rent the house while the owner is finishing up things that have to be done. And We're getting there, but we're living in it, and we have finally moved out of the RV. So these are good days. And in the midst of all that, we had 3 more weekends. I think it was 3, wasn't it, of tornadoes. We had 1 weekend of heavy rain.
We had 1 week of, I think, 3 huge storms, and so tornado watches and warnings.
And we open
all
our
in
church.
1 week.
Yes, we open our church as a tornado shelter for our local community. And so it's a great opportunity to serve our community and to be a help and blessing to people, but also a lot of work.
Yes.
So it was a good time to take a break and to help our community. Several in our family, our church family have, had their homes damaged, can't live in it. We have others who had water damage, can't live in it. And so just a whole lot of stuff going on in the last few weeks. And we are actually kind of coming out of it and feeling like, hey, our life's starting to get a little back to normal.
Well, maybe. Yes, but we are. We are settled in the house as far as it's a beautiful home. And so we're just getting things put away. No, all the boxes are not unpacked yet, but we're getting there. And as soon as some of the damage was done in a bedroom that Charity would like to inhabit eventually, so she's kind of on hold. So she's got some boxes stacked up, boxes of books. People, we have the books. And so we've unpacked quite a few, but as far as her personal books, so there's boxes of books up near her room. And then there are some more boxes in the garage, I believe, right, babe? So people keep asking me, are all your boxes unpacked? No, they're not.
But mostly we have.
But mostly, yes.
Basically, all we have left in the house are a few of Charity's boxes that have all of her books in them.
Yes.
And she refuses to unpack them until she can move into, quote unquote, her bedroom.
Right.
And I certainly understand that. And then Jacob, who is transitioning from Florida to here to go on staff at our church,
yes,
our youngest son, he also has quite a few books. And you know what? Those are in my garage. But he and his wife will be getting married, or fiance will be getting married here very shortly. And
yay,
those books are going to their new home.
Yes.
And so we're so excited about all that. And we have missed you guys. Thank you so much for staying with us over these last 3 weeks as we went all the way back to season 1 and replayed a 3-part series.
Yes.
And it just seems like forever ago that we recorded those. And yet here we are way down the road and a lot more to do and cover and talk about and teach.
Right. So I was trying to remember the title. The
Challenging Seasons of Life.
Challenging Seasons of Life. That's what it was. And I did listen to those this week and was reminded of those episodes. And
she learned a lot. It was just a help to her.
There we go. About all of the seasons, especially when it comes to marriage. And so I think it was helpful just reminding myself of a few things, that you always have the Holy Spirit, no matter what you're going through, if you are a Christian. And so I hope it was a help to you. And we appreciate your patience very, very much as we get settled here in Missouri.
And rethinking through those lessons and things we taught made me think of kind of simplify things down to 3 areas. And all the challenging seasons of your life, you do have to think through, how am I doing? Am I taking care of myself? Am I eating well? Am I, continue to exercise? Am I thinking straight? The second question there is, am I walking with God? Am I staying, am I continuing to pursue the Lord to make sure I'm walking with Him, I'm pleasing Him, I'm staying in my devotions, I'm praying? And then the third part there is, if I need help, am I getting it? There's always counsel available. There's always people to talk to. There's books to read. In our generation, there's a plethora of helps always available.
Yes.
And so that was a good series, I think, and I think a help.
And it does, if you're entering a challenging season of life, most of us, we just kind of buckle down and we're like, okay, here we go. And there are some challenging seasons in life that you can buckle down and you do just fine. You covenant together with your spouse that, hey, I love you and you love me and we're going to just do this together, and you figure it out. But there are some challenging seasons that come in, and it may be that right at the outset you should think, let's get some advice about this. Let's get some counsel. Maybe an older couple in your church, maybe your pastor and wife could be helpful to you. You can always reach out to us also. We're available to answer some questions over email and things like that. But sometimes it is the best thing just to get some outside advice and counsel and to help you get through that challenging season without feeling so very frustrated.
Sure. Well, let's get started kind of in these the next events coming up here, our next topics. Beth and I over the coming weeks are going to do a series that we're going to call Parenting Special Case Scenarios. And we have a lot of material to cover, including we're working towards doing some interviews with some friends of ours who are raising special needs children.
Yes.
And so a lot of special things coming up here very shortly.
Wonderful.
And in the midst of all of that, one of the things we thought we would do, we just just frequently we'll have someone reach out and say, what would you do about this? Or what would you do about that? We're going to take a few moments at the beginning of these just to throw a couple of question answers at you.
Yes.
And before we jump into introducing the Parenting Special Case Scenarios episodes, I thought what we would do is we would just begin here with a simple question or two to answer. And the first one was one we received some time ago. And the folks reached out to us and said, would you be able to share tips on how to train a 3-year-old who has a beautiful imagination on lying? And then here's kind of what they added. They said, we do a lot of pretend and imagination play, but I want him to also understand that lying, if asked a specific question, is not good. This is something that just recently came up, and I wasn't sure how to handle it or train him in it. Mm-hmm. I think it's a valid question.
It is a valid question. And yes, 3-year-olds can have vivid imaginations, and you want to develop that.
Yes. So Beth and I basically had 3 simple answers about what we suggest you could do about that. Number one is, I guess it kind of starts with you, Mom and Dad. You have to know the difference in imagination and lying.
Right.
And so start there. Using one's imagination is fun and normal and creative.
Yes.
But lying is refusing to face facts and or take responsibility for a specific situation.
Right.
So there's a difference.
And it could be, Mom, that you are, can I say, very vigilant in wanting your child to tell the truth every time. And so it could be that your child, in their creativity and they're just playing away, and you stop them and say, hey, did you pick up those toys that I asked you to? And he turns around and says, no, the dinosaur ate them. And in your conscience, you're thinking, oh no, he just lied to me about that. Well, he's still in the midst of play. So make sure that I'm not saying that you should let lying go at all, but just see the difference there. He's not willfully lying to you. He's not trying to be rebellious. He's not trying to be hurtful in any way. He was just playing. And so you can say, oh, well, I hope the dinosaur is going to help you put them away, because remember, we're going to put the toys away.
Sure.
Yes.
So imagination is not wrong.
Yes.
But lying is wrong.
Yes.
And what we have to remember is that while imagination is fun, lying is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So moms and dads, remember the Bible says things like lying lips are an abomination to God, but they that deal in truth, or who deal truly, are his delight.
Yes.
We're commanded in the 10 Commandments not to bear false witness or to be dishonest about situations. And the Bible is very clear that truth shall be established forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment.
Right.
And so those are important truths to remember. So we would suggest you, first of all, know the difference in imagination and lying, which probably is a given, but it is worth pointing out. So the second one, you have to use different words. So you separate the two with different words. Imagination is let's pretend.
Right.
Imagination is even the word let's imagine for a moment. So let's pretend, let's imagine.
Or even the question, are you still pretending? Because mommy just asked you a serious question.
Yes. And on the other side of that, in reality, we have to point out that always tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Now, obviously, a 2 and a 3-year-old is not going to get that little saying there, but we have to just continually teach that. Let's always tell the truth, tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And when you do know that your child is very deliberately lying, like the illustration Bethlie just gave, well, the dinosaur put my toys away. Well, obviously, that's an imagination at play. But if you ask a direct question, did you do that? And you draw very serious attention to it. This is a question. I'm looking for you to tell me the truth about that. Then that goes beyond into a very serious matter in which, at this point, for a 2 and 3-year-old or so, you do teaching. That's a lot of teaching there. And the point is that, that is a lie. What you just said, there's a lie, and that is very bad. Now, for a child to say, the dinosaurs ate it, that may just be imagination. Well, that's creative. But if a child is not giving a specific answer and is covering the truth by being unwise and failing to bring forth the statements of truth,
right,
then that is something we have to point out. So when you do have to correct it, you say it very softly, and maybe even put your hands on their face. You're drawing attention to how serious this is. Look at me. That is a lie, and that is very bad. Because our children pick up on those emotions, and you always want to connect that sober, somber, serious emotion when you're pointing out that they're lying. And then just the third thing was you have to teach. And so talk to moms and dads about that, about the idea of teaching our kids to understand lying versus imagination.
Well, there are a lot of verses in the Bible. In the book of Proverbs, there are verses about lying. And so you could even simplify the verse down to maybe the first part of a verse or something, because your child's very, very young, and get them, quote that verse to them and get them to memorize it. And so when you're in, say, a scenario where you feel, no, my child is willfully lying to me about this, like you ask them, hey, could you please turn off that game and come over here? And they're like, I'm not playing the game's not on, or whatever. I don't know. They're just being so very, and as the more you question them, the more they're just being very willful. Then you can say, hey, do you remember our verse? Let's say that together. And you go ahead and quote it, and then ask them to quote it, and then ask them again to tell you the truth.
Absolutely. And one of the things you can do is tell stories about lying. You can tell the Bible story. It's probably too long to read to a 2-year-old, but to tell them the story about Jacob, who, his mom helped him to deceive his father. He lied to his dad and said, I'm Esau, when in reality he was Jacob. And he covered it by putting the goat skins on his arm and on his neck. And his dad was, confused and said, well, you smell like Jacob, or Esau rather, and you feel like Esau, but my goodness, you sound a little like Jacob, but apparently you're Esau.
Right.
So he deceived. You can tell that story and even the aftermath, because then later, Jacob's father-in-law lied to him.
Right.
And then even later after that, years down the road, his own sons lied to him. And it's just the most amazing thing in the world that when Jacob's sons sold Joseph into slavery in order to deceive their dad, they also killed an animal, a goat, and took his coat of many colors and dipped it in the blood and went home and deceived their dad. And so it was just amazing how you can take that story to show your children, oh my goodness, lying is very serious, and it causes family problems, and it hurts people, and you even reap what you sow, and later people lie to you. And I think it's, is the boy that cried wolf, is that one of is it Aesop's fables?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, find some of those fables about, and many of us, I think, remember. I don't know if they even still tell those stories in school or not. Do they? Is that even something they teach in school?
I know they do in Christian education. I don't know about in public education.
Yeah, so the boy who cried wolf is one that you can tell. I remember hearing that as a little kid and being like, wow, because it all of a sudden clicks in your mind.
Yes.
That, lying was no big deal, and it was all funny, and then lying was no big deal, and it was funny, and then this was a serious matter, but nobody took him seriously because they thought, oh, he's just dishonest.
Right.
And so use lessons like that. So that's just some suggestions we would give in answer to the question, how do you help a 3-year-old who sometimes uses his imagination and lies as a result, or how do you know when to take care of that? So moms and dads, I hope that helps you.
Yes.
Next week, we'll take the time to answer the question, a little bit about how do you help a 2-year-old have devotions? And as a family, how do you have devotions?
Yes.
Not a 2-year-old having devotions.
Not their own individual
Right.
heartfelt devotions, which would be very sweet, but it might be hard for them.
But family devotions.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So let's jump in and introduce this subject that we're going to cover in the coming weeks here, parenting special case scenarios. This is a subject that we are frequently asked about.
Yes.
And it is a subject that every pastor has to deal with, because when you preach on the family and you teach on the family, there will always be parents who will say, yes, but, and they give a special case scenario.
Yes.
And those special case scenario they vary. They are all over the place. And so when we talk about special needs, we probably ought to start by defining it.
That's true.
So I looked up the phrase. I actually Googled the phrase special needs, and here's what Google says. Special needs refer to children who require additional support or services due to physical, developmental, intellectual, or emotional challenges. These needs can range from mild to severe and may actually affect various aspects of a child's life, including communication, mobility, learning, behavior, and social interaction. And I think that kind of covers it, doesn't it?
Oh, yes.
And underneath that statement there are a ton of things to talk about. Some children do have physical challenges. And a child who is blinded or who is deaf, children that are blind and deaf would have physical challenges that would require extra training and effort and even knowledge in knowing how do you help this child to become a successful adult.
Yes.
So there are definitely physical challenges. There are also varying degrees of mental and emotional challenges.
Right.
Sometimes those are related to things like fetal alcohol syndrome. We have a lot of friends, because of Christianity, is very concerned about helping the needy.
Yes.
So we know a lot of people who will adopt special needs children, or who will actually adopt a baby from a family that, just can't keep the baby, doesn't want the baby. And then after getting the baby, finds out that the baby actually is already addicted to meth or cocaine or, heroin, or who's already, highly damaged because of fetal alcohol syndrome.
Yes.
Those are very definite special needs that will affect the mental and emotional life of that child.
Yes.
Some would also include in that perhaps the severe or the varying degrees of autism.
Yes.
And as you know, you parents would know this, autism is a very common and favored diagnosis in our generation. And we even say things like, well, my child is on the spectrum. Which may mean, well, my kid has been diagnosed with autism, but nobody would really know it. They're just on the spectrum. Or it might even be a nice way for someone to say, my child is pretty autistic. They are, quote unquote, on the spectrum. But we also know that there are some very severe cases of autism in which it does affect all kinds of things about a young person's life.
Yes.
And so this would be the different areas of special needs. What are some of the others there?
Some children are diagnosed with behavioral issues.
That's a hard one to say, isn't it?
I don't know why it kind of tripped me up there, but behavioral issues such as ADHD or ADD or what's the one, the obstinate
OCD,
obstinate. I don't.
Oppositional. No, that's ODD. Oppositional defiant disorder.
Thank you.
And then there's OCD,
which is when you're obsessive compulsive. Yes.
Yeah, and just a brief definition of those. Many children are diagnosed with behavioral issues. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, by definition is a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by persistent patterns of inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity.
Yes.
The symptoms can cause significant problems in home and school and work and church. It's a very common diagnosis in our day. And then there's also attention deficit disorder. That's an older, what one author said, it's an older, more colloquial term for a specific type of ADHD that is called predominantly inattentive type. It's a child who just has a hard time paying attention.
Yeah, they don't focus.
Right. And then there's, of course, ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, a behavioral disorder characterized by persistent negativity, defiance, anger, often in children and adolescents. It's not a personality trait, but a condition that is diagnosed that can impact a child's ability to learn, interact with others, and function in various settings. And just so you know right up front where we're coming from here, in our generation, many things are diagnosed in these areas. And what Bethany and I want to show you in coming weeks here is that even if your child is diagnosed in these areas, God has a plan for how you're to train your child.
Yes.
So the point we want to make to you is that, yes, your child may have, even by personality, you may have one child that is very strong-willed and one that is naturally compliant. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes a strong-willed child or a child that battles anger, we often will take them to our doctors who are now trained to say, well, this child, based on their behavior patterns, has this issue.
Yes.
Or based on the fact that your child has a hard time obeying, they must be, suffering from this condition.
Right.
And yet, even in those diagnoses, God's plan is going to tell us how to handle this.
Yes.
There's one other there. What's the other one? The
obsessive compulsive disorder, which is a mental health condition, has been defined as this: a mental health condition characterized by obsessions, which are unwanted, persistent thoughts, images, or urges, and compulsions, repetitive behavior or mental acts that individuals feel driven to perform to produce the anxiety caused by the obsession.
And there's all kinds of levels here, friends. One of those levels is that in a culture like ours, there's no doubt that the internet has made things more difficult here.
Yes.
The internet, when our children are very young and they are continually bombarded by images from the internet, often there's overloads. One author taught and said that perhaps our brains have not evolved far enough to handle these kind of things in our day. That our technology is farther down the road than we can handle. Mm-hmm. And we certainly know that's true in issues like pornography and things of that sort.
Well, we don't believe in evolution, but
yes. We do not. But it just shows that everybody in our world is aware that we have issues here, and that's where I was going with that.
Right.
And so we even in issues where a child has been abused or been exposed to something explicit,
yes,
or especially children that come from situations where, and moms and dads, you need to know this, where there has been divorce and where the child is actually, the comfortable home may be torn apart all of a sudden.
Right.
The world we live in is trying to handle this when the nuclear family no longer exists, when we are bombarded all the time with images and noises and sounds. The world we live in their attempt to handle this, has labeled all of these different levels of this must be what you have.
Right.
And that's why they call it in the sense of neuro, and they call it mental health. Mm-hmm. So the whole point of it, it's not so much that, like you go to the doctor and the doctor takes your blood pressure and says, you have high blood pressure.
Right.
Well, then the doctor says, here's what you can do about that. Take this medication, change this meal, quit eating that, start exercising here. The goal is to get that under control. Well, mental health issues in our day, our medical profession just says, okay, well, we're looking for medication. And in a sense, moms and dads, that should terrify us a little bit, because
yes.
if you ever watch TV and television throws up a commercial about one of these medications that they're trying to tell you to take because it will help with this, one of the strangest things I was watching recently, I don't even remember what it was about, but there was a commercial came on, and Beth and I were watching this commercial, and it was about a medication that was supposed to take care of X. So I don't remember exactly, but this is the medication that will help you deal with X.
Yes, which was a mental health issue.
Yeah, and then a few moments later it said, this medication can cause X. It said this helps you with that, but it can also cause the same thing it's supposed to help you with.
Yes, or to give you stronger feelings in that direction.
Yes, and so it's just kind of an odd thing that made Beth and I stop and say, our culture needs to think this through.
Yes.
And as Christian moms and dads, we need to be very wise that we are doing due diligence. We're studying, we're thinking, we're evaluating, we're getting resources, we're making sure we understand what is being diagnosed and how. So the point I'm making here is that when we start thinking about parenting children in special case scenario, we do have to understand what special needs are.
Yes.
And so that kind of gives us an overview of it. And we do have to then think through how to help our child if they have a special need.
Yes, and just like if you took your child to the doctor, we have dear friends who are in Honduras, and they have a child who has diabetes, and I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but just like that child was diagnosed with diabetes, and his mom and dad have done everything they can to research, okay, what do we need to do to help this child so that they can live as much of a normal life as possible? And when we were there, that child could eat pretty much anything they wanted to eat, but they also do have to just watch him, and he's on medications, and there are different protocols that they have to go through to make sure that their child lives a healthy life. So if you were to go to the doctor and find out that your child had one of these other issues, and we're talking maybe a behavioral health issue or a mental health issue, just like that, you should not just sit there in the doctor's office and let them say, well, your child has ADHD or ADD or OCD or whatever the initials are that they give you, and say, oh, okay, well, you're the health professional, you tell me what to do. You should take their information, but then go and research it. Okay, how can I best help my child who is struggling in an area? And we are not at all saying that your child is not struggling in an area. And I'm not sure when all of these behavioral health and mental health issues started coming out. Maybe we should do a little research on that. But when we were young, I don't remember any child ever getting diagnosed with a mental health issue or a behavioral health issue. There were emotional issues that children had to deal with, and there were counselors available and help available. But anyway, when all of this started coming in, there isn't, to me, there's not enough research being done on it. So you as a parent, you need to sit back and say, okay, I need to research this. I need to get a hold of, first of all, what would God have us do with our child? And then secondly, what's the best way that my child can live a happy, normal life and get the help they need at the same time?
Yes. And moms and dads, remember that no matter what your child is battling with in the special needs or dealing with, whether they're deaf or they're blind, or they have been diagnosed with a mental health issue, or whether, they have fetal alcohol syndrome, the goal of parenting is still the same. We want to train our children to behave well,
yes,
and we want to do our best to prepare them to live an adult life as successfully as possible.
Yes.
And so that's what we're going to be talking about here in the coming days ahead. So just kind of whet your appetite a little bit to cover a few scenarios there. What we will talk about in the next episode, if you'll join us next week, we'll talk about, first of all, what do? We have to recognize that special needs vary in scope and demand. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about how that special needs are technically nothing new. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about the fact that God's commands are all the same and how to apply those uniquely in your situation with your child. We're going to recognize that behavioral issues are to be solved with patient teaching and training. And we're even going to talk about how to lead a special needs child to Christ. Mm. So we have a lot of material to cover here in the coming weeks, and I hope it'll be an encouragement and a blessing and a help to you. If you know someone that you think would profit, would benefit, would be helped by our teaching, then I hope you'll like and share, tell them about it. And our goal is that we'd be able to share wisdom and discernment and the truth of God's Word with you so that you could apply it to your life, your home, your family as well. Any final words?
I think we've covered quite a bit for today. I do hope that as we're covering this, if you have questions or concerns, I know when we start talking about things like this, people have very strong opinions. And I don't want you to think that we're coming at it from the standpoint of you should get rid of the diagnosis, don't worry about what the doctor says. No, we're coming at it from the standpoint of this is where we live in our culture, and children are being diagnosed all the time with all kinds of new things. We can't even keep up with it. So how do we parent in this culture with all these different diagnoses in a biblical way?
Absolutely. And so I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll benefit from it. And we look forward to sharing words of wisdom and the truth of God's Word with you. Hope you have a blessed day. We're happy to be back with you at Keeping It Young Podcast. And whatever you do this week, make sure that you serve the Lord with gladness.
The Keeping It Young Podcast is a Bax 5 Media production.